Shame on the entire members of the 10th National Assembly. Every member from the Senate President to the Deputy to the Speaker should be thoroughly ashamed of themselves. It is unfortunate that in a democracy, Nigeria is being managed today by one of the most unproductive and dangerous assemblies of parliaments in the history of parliament. If Senator Akpabio is saying people are misunderstanding and that they are sticking to 2022 Electoral Act, so what was the need for an amendment? The most important aspect of that bill was the mandatory use of electronic technology in the transmission of results, which, by the way, is an INEC-owned resolution. The outgone INEC chairman wrote the INEC position paper 21 on the use of electronic technology to reduce human interference, because the shrine of INEC or election rigging is in coalition centers. And today, after 2 years of considerations, the Senate ended up. Why? Because it is clear that the current government is waging a war on democracy and the electoral process. And now everything is beginning to make sense and link up, because you can now see the reason for the defections. If you have a system that, because section 60 subsection 5 clearly talks about the presiding officer will transmit election results in a way and manner as prescribed by INEC. Now the question was, did INEC prescribe the way? Yes. Paragraph 38-39 of the INEC guidelines clearly talks about electronic transmission of results. But in court, the judge said, since it was not an omission to the act, they could not hold INEC accountable, even when their guidelines is a sub-law of a main law. Now, what citizens were demanding was simple. Take what is on the INEC guidelines, let it be represented on the Electoral Act, and amend the relevant section of the Constitution, and then you begin to see this mischief. Because all the way, they have never wanted to carry out electronic transmission of results, because it is going to foreclose election rigging. So when you have about 31 governors in the ruling party standing on the mandate which they shall collapse, and you make manual an option to INEC, it becomes easier for you to suppress the votes, because what you need is political gladiators to ensure that you are able to write results, you are able to alter them where you are going to alter. Because let me be very clear, the APC knows that if there are free and fair elections in Nigeria today, before 1 o'clock on election day, President Tinubu will not only lose body lawn polling units in his house in Ikoyi, he will lose in Alausa, he will lose the Asoro polling units. So everything that is being done is ensured to be done that elections are not free and fair. It is now up to Nigerians to leave the talking and begin action. Opposition, CSOs, Nigerian youth, we must march to the National Assembly and make our voices heard. Let the world know that there is assault on our democratic process, and that in 2027, anything short of a free and fair election will not be accepted by Nigerians.
What do you make of Senate President Tinubu Akpabio's statements that it was lied to on social media, that the Senate didn't stop electronic transmission of results?
I think it is an insult to our collective intelligence that the number 3 person in the country will decide to brazenly engage in mischief and then try to turn the story around. I listened to the Senate President's clip, and it was clear, it was unambiguous, that instead of us altering it and making it mandatory, we are sticking to the 2022 Act. So if you are sticking to the 2022 Act, why did we go for a reform? So the Senate President is trying, the National Assembly, Auntie Yemi said she was going to give you, I have the list of all the members here, so you do not even need to go far. The chairman of that committee is Senator Lalong, the vice chairman is Senator Musa Yaradua from Katsina. We have all the Senator Seraki Dixon, Senator Adams Oshomole, unfortunately has been very busy in a private jet now, and engaging in certain actions and all of that. So the Senate President cannot insult the intelligence of Nigerians. It is deliberate. There have been information that they do not want this electronic transmission of results to be mandatory, and it is all part of the same game to ensure that you drag it up till this point. Because let us talk about it, elections are in February, likely in February next year. We are almost late on even having an amended Electoral Act to be signed into law.
Pushed for a long time. You've been at the forefront.
Yes.
I saw you with the flag. You had gone there, you had pushed, you took your documents and everything. You were writing out and telling them, this is what you need to do. You even went to Ghana.
Yes.
So why is it that, what makes Ghana far better than Nigeria in terms of deploying the real time, and Nigeria cannot? Is it that we don't have the capability to do so, or is it the glitch effect or something?
What makes Nigeria different from Ghana is corruption and criminality. We are giants in corruption and criminality, so we do not know how to make systems to work. The only systems that work here is corruption, crime, and criminality. So if you are going to talk about 210 trillion missing from NNPC without any accountability, you can reference Nigeria. So Nigeria exists so that other countries can learn how not to govern their countries. And Uncle Joe, I don't know if I'm allowed to call you that, Mr. Joe, on national TV. Do you know that Mahmoud Yakubu, the immediate past chairman of INEC, was in Ghana to teach them how to carry out electoral reforms in their country?
I read about that.
Yes, in a process that he failed woefully after collecting more than 300 billion. Himself and Barrister Festo Sokoye, the only places they did not go were people's bedroom to tell them about electronic transmission of results. On the day you say there was a glitch, having not explained what caused the glitch, today Mahmoud Yakubu has been appointed to become an ambassador. So what exactly was the basis of his employment or his appointment? So in Nigeria, we brazenly reward criminality and corruption. The only systems that will not work in the country are systems that government do not want to work. That is why when you see this level of mischief, they will tell you we are doing coastal highway, we are doing this, we are doing... No, sir. No, sir. Mr. President, democracies are built on credible elections. Can you take part of the how many trillion you are spending on coastal highway to fix technology for elections? Let the vote of the people count. If you have been de facto governor of Lagos State as President Tinubu for more than 20-something years, you handpick governors, and 26 years later you still need violence and coercion to make people vote for you, then you have a problem. There is a problem with that system of leadership because popularity should be influenced. Who is afraid of free and fair elections? Why is it that Nigerian Democrats, people who fought for June 12, that is what President Tinubu claims to do. But June 12 was all about free and fair election, that a mandate was given to a man more than 30 years ago. Free and fair. 30 years later, we cannot have, until date, to show you the level of mischief. President Tinubu is the only president since 1999 who has not publicly committed to free and fair elections. So that system cannot work because it is deliberate. It is now up to Nigerians to ask, do we want to continue to talk about it or mobilize? Because the APC has no plan for free and fair elections.
Okay, now, in our conversation with Mr. Damolekun, she was saying, because I did ask her about 2027 and what the long-term implications of this will be. Yeah. Are we going to see voter apathy? And she said 2027 is too far.
Yes.
Let's start with now to demand for impact.
Exactly.
And I know that you are one of those at the forefront of demanding for a change. But do you genuinely believe that these demands will yield a result?
It is not about me being genuinely, determined or agree that it will yield result. It is for us to collectively insist that this is a project that must succeed. If this doesn't succeed, Nigeria is moving nowhere. 2027 is already day of implementation. It is the actions that will lead up to 2027 that will guarantee what we want. As a people, we must ask ourselves the question, the power of the people and the criminals in power, who is stronger? APC does not have 31 states as it is being claimed. They have 31 governors. But unfortunately, our system is such that it is strong men who control it and not the vote of the people or the institutions working independently. So the entirety of victims of this rudderless kind of leadership, this renewed hopelessness, renewed hunger, renewed terrorism, renewed banditry, renewed criminality in government, we have never seen anything like this. We thought Buhari was bad governance. We did not know that there was a phase 2 that could be this terrible. So for us as a people, it is not sitting around to ask ourselves, should this be done? Can it be done? It must be done. And it can be done once Nigerians decide that enough is actually enough. This kind of mischief should not be allowed to continue.
Now, Peter, following the last elections, like we said in our earlier conversation, Professor Mahmoud Yakub went to Chatham House, was very proud, it was all over the media, and you've also alluded to that this is game-changing. They use words like revolutionary and all of that. And we saw that the 2023 elections were flawed. We talked about the glitch. And, human society, you try to improve on your last results. And that's why these considerations have been happening for the last 2 years. They had town halls. We interacted with members of the National Assembly. The goal of which is to get feedback from Nigerians who they are representing. Nigerians sent them to the Senate and the House of Assembly, and they've come up with this now. I know the biggest elephant in the room is the real-time electronic transmission of results, but are there any other positives that you've seen in this electoral amendment process that has been will be passed?
The unfortunate reality about elections in Nigeria is the fact that if it were about laws, if people stuck to laws and did the right thing, the 2022 Act should have given you elections because it was clearly stated, even the electronic transmission of results. It is the fact that when you see a country that has to amend laws almost every election season, then there is a problem. When you want to see how corrupt a country is, look at the number of their laws. Laws for everything, but the crime and criminality continues to increase because it's not about laws, it's about implementation and enforcement of laws. So even now, the judiciary does not even rely on laws. Law has become something that is rocket science because judiciary will rather take to rule on technicalities than on the facts of the substance. So whatever that you call an electoral amendment, if it is not reducing human interference in such a way that it builds transparency and credibility in the mind of the voter, let us come to think of it. INEC said more than 93 million people registered to vote in 2022. 87 million collected PVCs. As we are seated here, less than 30 million people voted in 2023. President Tinubu is seated in Aso Rock with less than 9 million votes in a country of more than 200 million people. How more unpopular can a government be? Even if in an exam you score less than 50%, are you viable for promotion in such a contest or in such an examination? Why is the Nigerian situation is such a charade? So it is not about whatever clauses. The main protection of elections is from voter registration to voting to transmission of results and the announcement. If that system is not proofed from corrupt politicians and criminality, we are wasting time.
All right. What about the flip side to this and the arguments that we may not be as ripe for this electronic transmission because of issues like, they cited network glitch or technical glitches. But there's also the network connectivity issues. You see how sometimes you want to make a payment and they're telling you there's no network, they're taking the POS around. So some people would argue that we're not as ripe as we think we are.
And you will be disenfranchising
some because, well, there's electricity problems. Even in the last elections, there were people who would tell you that, oh, the system is down, we haven't powered it, just little technicalities here.
How are the mighty fallen? Shame on Nigerian leaders that in 2026 Nigeria, this is an argument as to why if system cannot be reformed with technology. So we should be seated and talking about why technology will not work in 2026 Nigeria. When Ghana, Democratic Republic of Congo, is doing electronic transmission of results. The giant of Africa is the one who is giving reasons. And let me tell you this mischief, because that statement is completely put to rest. Do you know that it was Mahmoud Yakubu who went to visit the former NCC director as far back as 2018, Umar Dambata? They set up a steering committee, invited MTN, telcos to come. Let us know how you people have been helping JAM to conduct CBT exams in JAM. Let us see how we can implement it. Unfortunately, it was too close to the 2019 elections. They did not implement it. So they moved it to 2023. And they had all prepared. The only systems that will not work in Nigeria is what politicians do not want to work. Even NCC, the National Assembly, remember when Femi Gbajabiamila was speaker, he invited staff of NCC. They came to tell them that we have 3G in some places, 2G in some places. INEC wrote to the National Assembly and said, we are not asking you to pass what we have not tested. We are telling you to make legislation to back up something we are already implementing. As we are talking now, there are contractors in INEC who have been awarded hundreds of millions of contracts on electronic technology to be used during the elections. When there was a glitch, which of those contractors was taken to court? Which of them have been prosecuted?
None.
What is the consequence? So we sit down here and make excuses. People are engaging in absolute criminality and corruption, and Nigeria do nothing.
So it's just a convenient. It's a convenient excuse.
It's a convenient excuse.
But what's happening to the Green Chamber now? Because it seems like they've also been pushing. They've been looking clearly. Don't you think that now that you have the Red Chamber making a decision, the Green Chamber will just say, you know what, time is gone. By the way, the INEC boss, Samu Piton, has come out with a statement that he's crying. His tears are based on, I don't have time. Let's close this reform quickly so that I can start work and release my timetable. Don't you think the Green Chamber will just say, let's just follow suit?
The Green Chamber, that is the House of Reps.
Yes.
Yes, those are their partners in corruption. It is right and left arm of the same criminal structure. What do you expect? They are all standing on the mandate upon which they shall collapse. It is unfortunate that today we do not even have a National Assembly. That place is almost an extension of the executive. It is an APC town hall. They are only able to sustain corruption. If the president needs loan to borrow from OPE Clefe money, that is what they have the capacity to. When it comes to the substance of protecting Nigerians and making laws that can govern the people, we were together. Auntie Yemi knows, even from the X space we handled during the public hearings, for you to know the level of mischief. Some of the venues for public hearings of this Electoral Act Amendment Bill were taken to government houses, state government banquet halls, because everything is carefully choreographed and, you know, put in this pattern to end up where it is today. So whatever that the National Assembly comes up with, whether the House of Reps, would not be far different from what we have today. This conversation must move from politicians to the Nigerian people. What exactly do we want to tolerate? Because the Nigerian political establishment will continue to test your ability to take criminality and corruption. Once you move to the next phase, they will show you that there is another phase to it, until the people resist and say enough.